Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Manic Energy. I'm your host, Ryan Swore. There's something that's come into our lives recently. You may not know much about it. You may know a lot about it. I'll say that I know very little, but it seems here to stay. And it's this acronym. It's this acronym AI, or artificial intelligence. Have you, like me, wondered what it is? What does it do? Is it something that can harm us? Is it something that can help us? How will we use it for good? Should I be concerned? Thankfully today, Katie Brooks and I are joined in the studio by Kaycee Wheeler, who's here to enlighten us about the benefits that can come from this technology and maybe some of the risks that come with it as well. I'm Ryan Swore, and this is Manic Energy, the podcast that dives into the fast-moving world of energy, business, and the people powering it all. From bold ideas to real-world innovation, we're talking breakthroughs, market moves, and the community shaping what's next. Whether you're building for the future or just here for the fun, welcome to the chaos. Kaycee, thank you so much for joining us. Really excited to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Before going into your background, as we normally would, I just want to share a story, a personal story that I think is just amazing. And to me, I feel like it might set the stage for what we're going to talk about today. We at Lake Superior Consulting process a bunch of information, right? We collect information and we call it data. We take that data from various devices and forms. We augment it in certain ways. You know, you don't change the data, but you might change how we view the data. And then we put it together, multiple different sets of information put together so that it draws one picture and tells a story that allows or enables decision-making. And for years, we've had positions where we had individuals who processed data processing. And so you were in a role at Lake Superior Consulting supporting one of our customers. And a lot of that role was around data. And that role really ended. You came sort of back into the company from what we call an embedded position with our customer, where you serve it as an extension. And you came in and it was like, all right, Kaycee's awesome. How do we get him engaged and ingrained in our organization? And you took on one of these data processing roles. And one thing I just really love, and maybe the way I feel about this and my perspective or memory of it is different than yours, but my observation was that you came into this role and we had to show you how to do it. All right, what is this data? What am I supposed to do? And it didn't take but a few months. And at the time, we were looking at actually hiring more people in this type of role because we were growing. And instead of just learning the ropes and doing the job, you actually developed tools that did the job for you and for us. And not only did it do the job more efficiently and more accurately, more effectively, it put it in the hands of the individuals collecting the information, and that empowered or enabled real-time decision-making from the field, as opposed to what had historically been, in an ideal scenario, an overnight or a next day turnaround, but in all reality was sometimes a week or weeks, which didn't help our decision making. So, I just share that because I love that you were able to come in, you assessed a job in a position, and you worked yourself out of it. And I think immediately we asked the question, well, that's great. Where else can we do this? And so thank you so much. I wanted to take the opportunity to do that, but then also set the stage to ask, how did you know how to do that? Like, is this a skill you've had all the time? And so maybe we can use that as pretense or context for your background and how did you learn that?
Okay. Well, so let me just kind of roll back to where I started with LSC, or how I got to to Lake Superior Consulting. So about 14 years ago, a little over 14 years ago, I started with Midwest Inspection, which was a non-destructive testing side of the company, or the oil field company. So, but I started as just a technician or an assistant, and then I moved up as a level 1 and then level 2. Went and took the state exams, and I kind of accelerated the role, and they brought me in after about a year because I had some computer background. Went to college for a little while for computer information technology stuff. So I've always been interested in computers and microprocessors and doing soldering and stuff like that. So they brought me in to do the equipment calibrations on the non-destructive testing side. So like the X-ray detectors and stuff like that. And so that's where I really started in the oil field industry, is on the X-ray side. But over the years, I was with Midwest, and then Midwest merged with Desert NDT, and then got bought out by Shawcor, which also at the same time owned Lake Superior Consulting. And I was able to move over from a position at Shawcor into Lake Superior Consulting, where I'm at now, doing the data processing side. And then, of course, now I've got my new position, working and helping everybody with AI. So
when you were with Shawcor, you weren't just doing calibrations. If I remember correctly, this is how many years ago is this now? This is probably like 9 years ago, 8 years.
So it's been with Lake Superior. I've been with almost 5 years.
5 years, okay. It feels like longer, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Weren't you doing more? You were doing some development too, I thought.
Yeah. So with Shawcor, I was actually their system administrator for NetSuite and Salesforce, and their field data collector software. So FieldFX is what we were using at the time. So I was an admin for that. Plus, I did I was over top of the equipment calibration side, because I used to do it, but then I got moved up into a new role, and I hired somebody to do that part. And so I was overseeing them, making sure that was being done. And at the same time, we had a film digitizing crew of 4 that took the X-ray film that we had, and we would digitize it through a scanner that would take the raw film that people would use for just kind of like a X-ray in your bones, but it's using to X-ray actual welds on a pipeline. And a lot of customers wanted it digitized. And so we had a software that we were using at the time. And we had a crew of 4 people because we had so much of it. And so I was overseeing that group as well. And you feel things changed in the company. And I was able to basically progress into a position where I was helping develop software on the Shawcor side called Weld Advisor, which was kind of a sister software, which is our pipeline portal that Lake Superior Consulting has now. They're made at the same time. But I was working with Shawcor and the corporate side to develop that software with them. And so basically I went from that to things changed on the Shawcor side a little bit. I had the opportunity to move over to Lake Superior Consulting on the data side. So of course I took you guys up on that opportunity, and I went from X-ray over to cathodic protection, CP side. So it was a little bit of a change, but it wasn't super hard to get into it just because of my background in the technology side and the software development and working with data. So
artificial intelligence is something that you've been using, I assume, more recently or in more modern time. You know, how has that changed the way in which you approach either data management or software development?
Yeah. So, AI didn't really come about super big until some of the later versions of, I guess, ChatGPT, which is, a new version or a version of AI company. And they really kind of advertised it, and people started talking about it more and more, and they put applications out so the normal person could actually start using it and using it to process data. It was about 3 years ago. One of the guys I worked with he worked for Salesforce. I had good contact with him on LinkedIn. He just randomly popped me up on LinkedIn, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing? I haven't talked to you for a while." And then he's like, "Have you done anything with AI?" And I'm like, "No, I've heard about it, and I've dabbled a little bit about it or with it, but I haven't really gotten into it a whole lot." And he's like, "Well, you should check it out, because I use it for doing my Salesforce, the formulas and creating the applications and stuff inside Salesforce." He's like, "It makes my job so much easier." And I'm like, "I'm gonna have to look into that," because that in the process of working with the embedded company I was with and processing their data, I'm like, something got to be a little easier than manually copying and pasting in spreadsheets and stuff like that to clean up data and stuff like that. So that's where I kind of dove into it and started understanding, man, I could do all sorts of fun stuff with this, and a lot of coding and formulas in Excel. It just made it so much easier. So there's, I like to say that in the data industry, or in most companies, there's always that Excel specialist that you go to because you need help with a formula, or it's like, hey, I need to make a pivot table and I just cannot get this right. Can you help me out? And after spending 2 or 3 hours of working on the same issue, trying to figure it out. And so you contact that person in the company that's the specialist or guru in Excel, and then they spend an hour or two doing it, and then they give it back to you. And that's a whole 8 hours later, you finally get your spreadsheet fixed and set up. Well, now you can ask AI, whether it's ChatGPT or Anthropic. We'll go into that a little bit later on what companies and stuff like that are available. But you can just ask it, say, hey, after 10 minutes of working on this spreadsheet, I'm like, I just don't know. I'm going to ask AI, and I get in there and start asking it questions. Say, hey, I got this data right here. I've got column A, column B, and I need to see it in column C and make a pivot table. How do I do it? And you just ask, and then it comes back with the formula and says, yeah, here's copy and paste this in here. And, within 20 minutes, something that would have taken 4 or 5 hours of you finding it and having a specialist do it, you can actually just copy and paste and have it do it for you. So that's kind of like the aha moment. I'm like, there's something really to this, so.
So is that how your journey with AI started, was asking for help within Excel, or was it coding?
So my initial was coding.
Okay. And what was your level of knowledge with coding or experience with coding prior to?
So about 25 years ago, I was into doing like web development, making just basic websites and stuff. It wasn't super complicated at the time. They didn't have all the advanced web coding and applications and stuff like they do now.
Okay.
And so, but yeah, I had a lot of fun when I was, 15, 16 years old, when the internet really started booming and everything. And I was making my own websites, putting like theweather.com on my web page and stuff. And so that was my experience. And throughout the years, I've made some basic websites and stuff like that. So I had a little bit of coding knowledge there. I had a lot of experience with electronics and soldering and with microprocessors and stuff, but I always had a hard time with like the firmware and stuff, trying to tie those two together. And so what's cool is understanding you can use AI for the coding aspect of it and tie the hardware and software together. By just asking AI, hey, I've got this microprocessor and I want it to make this LED light flash, but if you didn't know how to do Python code or anything like that, you could never do anything with it. Well, you don't necessarily have to know Python or any of these programming software languages. You just have to know how to ask AI about it. And so I started getting more into it that way with,
So you're a bit of a tinkerer, right?
Yes.
At home in the garage.
Yeah.
So what have you built? Have you built things since starting to leverage AI, or done things that you maybe wouldn't have been able to do before? It sounds like LED lights or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. So I've done a lot of research and tinkering, but I've actually got a couple of projects. So a couple of things I've always wanted to do was create circuit boards. And
For what purpose?
so LSE is Lake Superior has given me the opportunity to experiment and expand my knowledge a little bit more on DCVG. Some of the different types of surveys we have, stationary data loggers and stuff, where we actually process data with already tools that are already out there. I'm like, well, I wonder if I could make a multimeter or something like that, and be able to make my own circuit board and play around with that, just for my own knowledge and to understand and play around with it. So I started experimenting with making my own circuit board. And just within the last couple of months, I've been able to use AI to walk me through the technology side of it and what kind of circuits and stuff I need to use. And then I used AI to help me with the software side on how to actually design the circuit board. And then I went through the whole process and I sent it off, went to some company in China to have it manufactured. And 3 weeks later, I got a circuit board back. And so I've been playing around with actually creating my own front end for data loggers and stuff. So it's obviously fairly new for me, especially, but it's amazing how I am able to use AI to tie hardware and stuff that you can buy off the shelf to actually create something that possibly could ever be useful to do some of our testing and stuff we do, whether it's just prototyping or whatnot. But yeah, it's pretty amazing some of the stuff you can do with AI. So
I feel like you could have like the best house on the street come the holidays.
Oh,
if
yeah,
you
yeah.
wanted to get the light show going.
Yep. Yeah, I have experimented with that too. There you can get just these little tiny microprocessor boards that are just pre-made ones, and then you connect your LED lights up to it. And there's a software you can just go online that they make and just you flash it, and you can actually just go in there and program your whole light show with it. It's pretty neat. So
Have you ever done any other fun projects around the house, not work related?
I've done it quite a bit with 3D printing. So this is the
sure.
other thing I dabble into is at the first of the year, after come up to Lake Superior, to one of our offices, we started, one of our other guys, Paul, he's showed me the 3D printed cases that we had for our stationary data loggers that basically slotted into, and you stick it around the test point to hold it up.
Yeah, with the amount of tape I used to use.
Yeah, right,
3M
exactly. Electrical tape, taping it up.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he showed me some of the actual equipment and stuff like that. And then I had some ideas. I'm like, it'd be really cool if we made a bracket for our data loggers to wrap the cords around, because I was out doing surveys, and I'm like, it'd be easy to have something to clip onto it. So I'm like, I'm going to buy me a 3D printer. And so I got some advice from him on which kind of printer to get. And so I ended up buying one, started tinkering and making keychains, just messing around. And of course, once you get a 3D printer, you start just printing anything and everything. It's like, oh, this is cool. I'm going to print this little dragon, or snake and stuff. But a lot of that, I'm like, I need to go a little bit deeper. I think I can make some really cool stuff. So I actually started using AI to teach me how to use CAD, and the CAD software, where I could actually create cases, custom cases, and stuff like that for a lot of my projects that I've been making. It's amazing being able to ask somebody a question and not have to bother a real person. I can actually ask AI, hey, can you show me how to use this version of this software, a CAD software? And it'll walk you through step by step. You click on this button here, click on file and open here, and it walks you through exactly how to do it. So it's not just telling me how to do it. I'm actually learning at the same time, which I think. So I think one of the really cool things we can do now with AI is on the learning and teaching aspect, and utilizing AI to create custom, I guess, lessons and learning of how to do certain things, whether it's learning how to do electronics, or if I want to learn a new language, or you name it. You can think of it, you can name it, you name it. You come up with these different programs and stuff. So,
is there concerns around, or are there concerns around like quality control or anything like that? So how do you probably still need somebody to review those outputs to make sure they're working, or,
right.
In my understanding, at least as I've used it, I'll ask a question and I'll get something back and I'm like, that's not right. And then I'll try again and again and again, those prompts.
Yeah.
And then eventually I see it and I'm like, okay, no, that's right. So you still kind of need the human engaged, the knowledgeable person engaged, right?
Well, and exactly. You can use AI to clean up the data as much as you want, and to make your jobs easier by using it to actually organize and actually process data and stuff. But it's only as good as the output. And then you're always going to need that person, that human, to actually analyze the data itself, to say, it's because AI can actually generate all sorts of stuff. It can clean up, it can process data, but it doesn't tell you if it's right or wrong. It doesn't say, yes, this is correct, or this is not correct. You're always going to have that person or the project manager to review the data and say, yeah, I understand this. This actually looks really good. This is right. To approve it. So
you mentioned tools, plural. Are there multiple AI platforms out there? And if so, any comparison or contrast you could do between them,
right.
At least in your experience?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So there's all sorts of companies out there. You've got Anthropic, you've got OpenAI, which is like ChatGPT. You got Meta, you've got Grok, which is, X AI. You got Google, Gemini. So each one has its strengths. For the coding aspect, I use Anthropic. They have a new one out. The newest one is like 4.6, Claude 4.6, and man, it's amazing on coding. You basically ask it for something, and the output it puts out is super high quality. Of course, you still have to review all the code and understand it, but you get Gemini 3, which is Google. I think their image creators, Nano Banana is what they named it. It's kind of silly, but it is excellent at creating images. So, but from text, you just tell it what you want. Depending on the project or the type of work that you're working on, would kind of determine what kind of LLM or what company you want to use, because they all have their own strengths and stuff. And
sure, so like Copilot might be really tied well to Microsoft products,
right? Yeah, and Copilot's one of those unique ones that's in the Microsoft ecosystem, and we use that a lot because it's included with our Microsoft Teams, and we use it for basically when we do meetings and stuff, having it take notes and summarize a lot of stuff, and it's built in, so it makes it really convenient. But that's one of the strengths of Copilot. But it just depends on what your aspect of your
it was phenomenal. We had a strategic planning meeting that went 2 days, and I didn't write a single thing down. Just hit record, transcribe or whatever from Copilot on Teams, and at the end of it, I was like, okay, summarize the results of what we discussed over this 2-day planning process. And it was printed out like 30 pages of information. And I was like, oh, okay, can you condense this?
Summarize
and then can you summarize it? And then can you do it again? Can you get it to no more than 8 bullet points? And it's like at the end, I'm like, same day, I was like, those are definitely the key themes of what we discussed today, and they're the most important outputs.
Yep.
And I said, well, let me try something. Can you make me a PowerPoint? And it spun for maybe 20 seconds, and then it spit out a PowerPoint of
but how did it
summarizing.
look?
PowerPoint needed a lot of help. But it was there. I mean, somebody that's far more gifted than me was able to take that and make it even better.
They get you that base.
But I'm sure I could have given it more prompts or run it through a different tool and had that clean it up as well.
Certainly helps us get to that 80% and then let the SME take over. But Kaycee, I was going to ask, so your journey with AI started with ChatGPT, correct?
Yeah, the initial one.
The initial one. And then I have 2 questions here, starting with that, with ChatGPT. The way that it looks today, is how it looked and operated back then?
When I first started using it, it was more of a chat window, and you would talk back and forth with it, and it would the large language model would you'd ask it a question, and it would actually predict the next outcome, and that's what the way the AI works is it gives you the next
most likely thing you're going to ask or need.
And, sorry.
But doesn't it probably draws upon history of what other people are asking? And isn't that the point of the large language model? So like the more we use it, the more it determines successful outcomes, or we say, thank you, that's what I was looking for. Then it's looking at probably probabilities and using its algorithm to sort of predict that, what it is you're looking for. And so was that what the large language model is? Is it's taking output or inputs from all these different sources to effectively improve its ability to predict? Is that a way to look at it?
And it's trained by billions and billions of pages and lines of data, and that's why they call it training the model is because they're taking a lot of basically as much data as they can get, whether it's off the internet or through the companies that developed it and stuff, and taking all that information and packet it in to a database. And the thing about the chips and stuff, I don't know if you've heard about the different kind of chips that they're using. So a regular CPU would work, but it's not fast enough to process the data. And so they started going with GPUs, which is graphical processors from your video cards on your computers, because it's a lot faster and it has more memory. And so right now if you look at the industry, video cards are expensive because the memory prices have gone up because all these big companies are purchasing the memory. And so if like you got a regular PC gamer trying to get a video card, and they're, instead of paying $800 for a graphics card, they're now paying like $5,000 for these graphics cards because of the price of these chips going up. But these big data centers are using they're using this video card type chips to process all the data. And the biggest thing with the video cards is it's because it's so much faster to process the information. They're actually taking all the I guess the stock from the companies that are selling, like NVIDIA. So, but back in the 70s, the AI was available, but it didn't have that much processor power to be able to process some of the machine learning algorithms. Kind of roll it back here a little bit. There was a chess player that played against a computer, and the machine learning, they had it at the time, but it was more, instead of being AI, it was if and then statements, right? And they would program the software to actually play against the chess player, and it was one of the first times, I guess, the computer beat the chess player, the master chess player. But it was machine learning at the time when they back in the 70s, but it was a type of AI, right? But they didn't have computer processors that could process that, and they didn't have the amount of data to be able to process and come up with the I guess a knowledge base for that. So
yeah, and it's I've seen like where you can take a significant amount of information that any human would struggle to really identify trends and themes with, and I've seen it a couple times where it's like, hey, you can almost take like your power consumption over the past 3 years by day, if you knew it, and say, tell me about some themes and trends. And I would say, well, it looks like Tuesday from 2 to 4 p.m. is your peak usage. And so I think it probably starts to inform a lot of companies and even end users or people about, in companies on, what trends they have in their business, and then what things they could probably do to improve. So you can almost like put your financials into there as a business and say, tell me what I need to do differently. And it says, well, it appears that you've got really high costs in this category tied to these things. These changes might actually improve your business. I mean, which is just gnarly to me that you could do that.
Yeah. All the different things.
My question though is, do I need to be concerned about that getting out there in the world? Like, are there privacy concerns? Is there a preferred platform, or is there a way to set up any one of these systems so that you're not worried about your privacy?
Right. And so when it comes to the training aspect, you can turn on most of them as long as you're paying for it, right? If you have a paid subscription, it gives you a question if you want to be able to share your data or not that you're asking. Usually, if you don't have a paid subscription to any of these, it kind of gives them the right to use your data for training and the algorithm and stuff. But if you're if you're on a corporate plan like our Copilot, it stays inside of our ecosystem. Microsoft Copilot's a big one because like a lot of companies use, just because it stays in all the data stays in your ecosystem.
So does it still draw on the large language model then, or is it really your own individual sort of large language model that gets created?
No, it still uses, so like Microsoft uses ChatGPT as their backbone, because I think they're part owners of OpenAI.
Sure. So, but it's unidirectional, where the insights will come in, but the outputs don't go out.
Right. Yeah. It's contained inside of it, and for the most part, any of these companies they pay a subscription to, as long as you don't have the check mark showing share my information, they still gather the data and it stays. And they say they're not going to use your information for training. Of course, you can only take their word for it on that part. But
when you say training, it's not training humans; it's training the algorithm.
Training the algorithm, and using your data for any of the future products. Because if you ask a lot of these training models or the LLM, say, hey, how up to date are you? And it'll have a training point up to a certain point where they stop training the model, and so like if there's any kind of historical information, it won't be able to tell you anything past a certain date or past a certain date. But it does have access to internet. So if you ask it a question, if it doesn't have it in its knowledge base, it'll go out and search the internet and find sources and give you the answer back on that part. But
so what's the easiest way for somebody to get started? So I mean, I think there's probably a lot of people who have experimented. I know some people who use it like almost in an unhealthy way, like constantly using ChatGPT or an AI tool of some sort. If you're somebody who's not using it or thinking I don't need it, I mean, how does this equate to your, maybe possibly changing your daily life? I mean, so like the cell phone, for example, changed lives in a pretty big way when it became mainstream and everybody started carrying one. And I remember, nobody was texting. Some people were texting, and it probably was a generational thing. And then now everybody texts, and it's so much easier. People I heard say, "I'll never send a text." Now that's the only way I communicate with them. 10 years later, maybe 20 years later, I guess. What would you say is easiest step for somebody to start maybe using some of these tools if they're not today?
Well, a lot of people experiment and use it with, emails and correcting their emails. Like if they want to send a message or an email to somebody, they'll use Copilot and say, "Hey, I want to write an email. Here's kind of the information I want to use." And then it'll just have it clean it up for you and make it sound more professional. So a lot of people,
I've noticed that with some people where it's like I've been working with this person for 13 years, and I can't count how many emails we've traded. Then I see one, I was like, "Holy cow!"
Yeah,
like
it's a little bit sharper, a little bit more professional.
Yeah, this isn't you. I was like talking to them. I was like, "Did you use AI to write that?"
Yeah.
And then is there shame involved anymore, or is that out the window?
Well, I think it's gone sooner rather than later. And it's like this is great. It was really polished. It was perfect. It was excellent.
Yeah. Well, and my daughter is a good example of this. She owns a barber shop, and they use a lot of social media. And I kind of showed her some of the stuff I've done with AI and the way I use it and stuff. And so her and her partner, they started using the social media the AI to write social media posts and have AI kind of generate pictures all around their theme, their colors and stuff like that. And then they would post it on there and advertise. So that's another easy way or good way to get into it is just, I think the free versions of any of these softwares, whether it's Google Gemini or with the Nano Banana making those images, they give you a certain amount for free. But I mean, if you want to have it create an image or something to help with social media posts, that's a really good way to get into it. And even just playing around with it, going in and just asking it questions and, how far is it to the moon and back? These simple questions, the fun quizzes and answers and stuff. But even if if you want to go on a little bit deeper, I know they kind of outlaw it in schools, high schools and stuff nowadays. Because I know my daughter, my youngest, she can't use it in school, and which I understand. I wouldn't want her to. It's a lot of cheating, I guess you could say, getting the answers, but using it to help do research and ask questions on AI, saying, "Hey, I got this subject. Can you teach me a little bit more about it?" And you just ask it questions and have it give you answer back and timelines, all kinds of stuff.
I've heard different philosophies on this, right? And who knows what the future will look like, but it's interesting to me that early on it felt like there was a lot of accusations around cheating. Like now you can't do a typical Google search, for example.
No.
So when I was in college, even today I'll Google, you even use it as a verb, right? I'll Google things all the time. Yeah. And now you can't even do that without it working through an AI tool. And so your traditional Google search feels like a thing of the past. It's archaic. It's gone. Yeah. Now that being said, I've talked to some professors actually that told me that their university is embracing AI. Really, their thought, at least in the ones I was speaking with, was, listen, when individuals go into the workforce, our role in society is to prepare individuals who are paying good money for us to prepare them to enter the workforce. Yeah. And, quite frankly, if you aren't leveraging these tools, and it's not that they displace jobs, it's not that they wouldn't or can't, but I think predominantly they're a lever, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're not leveraging the technology and other people are, it already puts you at a disadvantage in the workforce. Yeah. And so they're, at least in this university, they're embracing it and saying, "Hey, listen, we encourage you to use AI because you're going to be using it in the workplace when you enter the workforce. And so we want to train you to use it here." And then coincidentally, if somebody is in the university, the feedback, what they were telling me is, if somebody's not using it, actually, they get worse grades because others are using it. And so the fact that they're spending so much time and energy on something when they don't need to, and they're not taking the easier route that you would actually in real life, they're falling behind and their outputs aren't as high quality. So somebody who used AI might get an A on a paper, and somebody who didn't might get like a D because the quality just isn't there because they use their own mind instead of using the large language models that exist.
Kind of goes against everything.
Kind of goes against everything we're taught, where you need to demonstrate that you can do the math equation.
Don't cut the corner.
Not cut the corner. And
that's like the calculator, right?
Today.
Yeah.
Because they always used to say, you're never going to have a calculator in your pocket to do it. It's like, well, I've got you got a cell phone everywhere.
And I'm not advocating one direction or another on what's better for a person to learn, but because it feels like over time, what would happen is you've got a bunch of people who are relying on technology where they don't know how it was built. If you run the clock forward 50 years,
Well, and that's a good point, but there is to a point that for example, the coding side, like it was the stuff I've been doing with creating, websites and web tools and stuff that way. And I think with having a coder doesn't really know how to code. Well, they know how to code, but they don't have to write code anymore. And they're basically having AI write the code itself, and then they're just reviewing it and doing the testing to make sure it works. And that's I think that's where the industry is going when it comes to software programming.
But let's just say you're a coder, and so I'm not. So I don't, and I've never done it. So I don't know. I'm just like, you got to explain it to me. Like I have no idea what you're talking about because I don't. So if I'm a coder and I do this, I use AI, and then it gives me something and I test it, which really what I'm looking for is, does it do what I want it to do?
Yes.
And let's say it doesn't do what I want it to do. I don't even need to be a coder. Couldn't I just give it right back to AI and prompt again and say, this isn't doing what I want it to do?
Take a screenshot. And that works so well because of the visual capabilities of AI now too. You take a screenshot of the screen and say, hey, I don't like where this word is. I don't like how this is positioned. And you paste that back in and say, hey, I don't like the way this looks. And AI will take that and say, yeah, I recognize that. Let me fix it for you real quick. And then it'll fix it and spit it back out, and you go and test it. And you just go back and forth.
Process.
Yeah.
When I was talking about, the software development back with Shaw Core, the process we had was we had the big whiteboard, and we planned out the whole software and what we wanted to, what we wanted Wealth Advisor to do at the time. And then we would give that to the development team, the coders. And then 2 weeks later, they'd be, okay, here's it back to you. Now test it. And it'd take us, a week to go through all the testing and everything, find the bugs, and then send it back. It was a very tedious, time-consuming process. Well, now I can go in there and I can have it create me the base software or the code, and I can run it and test it myself. And I can say, I don't like the way that looks, to tell AI and have it fix it. And I can test it. 8 hours later, I have a full-blown prototype of a software that does exactly specifically what I want without having to go to, five different, coders in a company, and $20,000 later, and come back with something that works pretty good, but it's not exactly what I wanted. And I have to go back and forth. So it's amazing what you can do just by just talking to it and having it create it for you. As long as you know your end goal, right?
What it is you're trying to achieve. It seems the rate of this change, or the rate of adoption, let's talk about that first, in this industry seems like it's eclipsed anything we've seen before. So, you can go back to the computer, email, versus fax, cellular telephones, cell phones or mobile devices. Think about the adoption of the pager, which then turned to, and maybe we even go back further than that in cutting the cord, going from a cord to a phone that we had in our house. We had one that actually moved around. Then you always just got to look for it because you don't know where somebody left it.
It's dead,
not
and
on
you
the
can't find
station. It's dead, exactly. But I mean, I'm saying like the cell phone technology, we saw as a pretty rapidly evolving market and landscape. Yeah. And then you go into even other things like mobile banking, where people are like, I'm not going to use my cell phone to look at my bank account. I've got to go. I've got to look at my monthly statement, or I've got to balance my checkbook. I've got to go into the bank. And now what we see, at least in communities most predominantly in, is banks closing. The ATM even changing. People used to carry cash. Now less people are carrying. Yeah. But the speed of that feels like it's dwarfed by the speed of adoption and artificial intelligence. So. Yeah. So I see the adoption happening really, really quickly, and that's what's driving, it seems, the investments that are happening in things like data centers, as you described. What about the speed of change of the technology itself? So somebody's been using it for a few years now, and even referencing back in the 70s, where through machine learning, a computer beat a grandmaster chess player.
Yeah.
Have you seen similar to the rate of adoption, the rate of change with the tools themselves advancing, or is it kind of like it's here, it does what it does, and now it's just only minor refinements and improvements?
So I am up to my neck in AI and the tools. I'm watching videos and the evolution, and I see it every day. It's crazy how fast it is moving. In the last 2 years, I've gone from being able to take the code and having to copy and paste it from one tool to another to get it to run, and it would work every once in a while, and it took me forever to do anything. To now, I can just have the tool, type it in, and it'll change it for me, and it updates it, and then it shows it to me. But every week it seems like they're coming out with a new tool, a faster model. It's hard to keep up with because of how quick it's going.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, these big companies are investing billions and billions of dollars literally in data centers and stuff because they can't build it fast enough. So I think the rate of adoption is way faster than even the internet was or the cell phones. I think even speaking of that though, the amount of time in the AI has been going, if you can think of it this way, when the internet first came out, all these newspapers and articles and stuff like that, they're like, hey, we can put our news articles online, and people are like, check this out. I can go online and go to this news website. And it's not really a website. It was more of a news feed that you can get your weather and stuff like that and not have to get a newspaper, until they figured out, hey, we can make websites and actually do full-blown websites. And it took a while for that to be adopted. But once it did, then all of a sudden that's when, you saw all the people adopting, making their own custom websites for their businesses and stuff like that. Well, I think AI is in that newspaper phase where they're just figuring out, hey, we can do these certain things with AI. And they're just, besides just asking a question, have an autocomplete email, just 3 or 4 years ago to now it's writing software for us. I think the big software industries should be scared right now. The big SaaS companies like NetSuite and Salesforce and these things, because these small businesses and stuff are able to actually write their own software and create their own tools in-house without having to pay subscriptions or fees and stuff like that.
Consulting fees.
Yeah. So
I watched one video. I think it was on, I don't say the platform, but it was maybe 60 Minutes actually. I will. And it showed, and this is a while ago, I think this is like half a year ago, maybe. And it showed sort of advancements where like today, I don't have great access where I live to somebody to come work on things. And so I'm a power user of YouTube to try and figure out, how I fix this specific
YouTube
furnace.
mechanic.
Like I'm my own mechanic at home. And, everybody's worse off for it, unfortunately, but we get it done. But I saw this video of somebody that was basically like using the phone in a cradle that it was actually guiding their hands and saying, nope, not there. Nope, not there. Do it this way. And so it's almost like the next step of YouTube training to work on your equipment at home, or, your whatever breaks down. It's actually live guiding you. And I think what they were showing, if I remember right, was, applications in healthcare, where surgeries and saying, nope, that, that's not where you want to do that. That's not the heart. That's not the right valve. That's not and it was like a real live thing. But I mean, it feels to me like we're going to see some rapid change in how we live and work every day and use this technology. And it just feels like the adoption is here to stay. And I guess the thing I'm concerned about is it feels like it locks in the demand for energy. Because we're not going to want to let these luxuries go once they're here.
Oh yeah, and I think they say right now there's one data center a month being built, and that's just the beginning. And in the future, within the next 2 or 3 years, they're going to be building 20 or 30 data centers per month, and the amount of energy that's going to take to power these data centers is just enormous. And so I think speaking of like Lake Spirit Consulting, I think we're going to get a lot busier with protecting pipelines that have these high voltage electrical lines that are above the pipelines that are feeding these data centers.
Yeah.
And so I think.
What do you think the future looks like technology wise? Like, and so I kind of said one thing, you know, what does it look like to you with how fast you, and by the way, I don't see how anybody could predict this. So it's an impossible ask.
You know, I think when it comes to the technology itself, it's only going to progress faster and faster, and the type of tools that we're using, and it depends on the industry you're in, right? So Hollywood, I'd be scared because of how fast video generation. You just type a message and say, hey, I want you to create me a video. You're going to be able to create your own entertainment movies or video games. You can say, I want to create a video game. It's customized to you, where you just say, I'm in the mood for a shooter game, a first person shooter game. And this is the described, I want a Vietnam War or whatever. And it'll actually sit there and produce the game on the fly, and it'll never be the same. You'll be able to play video in Hollywood. I've seen so many video clips that a brand new one just came out. I think it was a Chinese version of an LLM that produces like 30 seconds video, but it takes somebody's a lot of these movies that have like an ending that you don't like. They're like, I'm going to redo the ending of the story. I saw one of Game of Thrones the other day. Somebody had made, and it was pretty silly, but they took and changed the ending of the movie, and it looked just like it was a regular movie, like it was part of the initial one. But if they're up to 30 seconds, they started at 2 seconds worth of video, and then it went to 10 seconds and more, and it's up to 30 seconds of straight video of being able to mock something up, and it's so realistic.
Yeah, it seems like there only need to be some protections around it all. I've seen some of that as well, but I mean, even around media, like knowing what to believe and what to see in videos, it's really scary.
Yeah.
Well, I think eventually people are going to have that craving for, or not so much craving, but if somebody were to invest in a media company and say, this media, all the news that we're reporting has no AI built into it. People are going to be like, I want to buy and subscribe to that one because we know it's guaranteed not to have AI, and it's not fake, because
that's something I heard the other day. I was listening to, it was, they're talking about creating imagery or videos, film, whatever, but that people are going to start craving just the natural human factor in it, where that, you're watching stuff on social media now and you're like, 6 fingers?
Yeah. Well, I think, Meta came out the other day that said that they stopped trying to call out fake AI videos because they were getting so good. They were actually starting to flag real videos instead of calling out the fake ones, because it was so hard to validate if it was real or not. And so now, you have the green check mark or whatever saying that this is a real video. It's crazy what they're able to do.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Don't sleep on the next 2 years is really what you're saying. It's going to get insane, even more so than it has, I think. Yeah.
But when it comes to when it comes to jobs and stuff like that, though, the thing to be scared of, I don't want to scare anybody, but in my opinion, is entry-level jobs when it comes to, especially with data. The plumbers and the pipe fitters and the technicians that go out in the field collecting the data and that kind of stuff, those aren't going to go away. Those you always have to have somebody to fix your plumbing and stuff like that. But anybody that sits down at a computer and processes data or does analyzing, they need to learn how to embrace and utilize AI.
What about engineering?
Well, yeah, I think eventually in engineering too, to be able to predict or produce any kind of engineering designs and stuff like that. You just tell it what you want and give it the specifications. But the entry level ones are going to be the ones in trouble, because you need somebody who understands the industry that's just kind of the mid level to high level to direct the AI what you want to do, and then to be able to read the outcome, the output of the AI. But the guys that are the people that aren't in that mid level position, the ones that are coming out of college or that are interns, normally we give them that data processing side so they can learn and understand it, and then they move up to the middle, right? Well, AI is taking over those easy jobs, the ones that they learn from. What happens when that's gone? That bottom entry level to those positions, we're not going to need them anymore. So whether it's more training in college to understand the mid-level on how to
The
use
hard part
AI.
is it's a building block. So you
building
can't
blocks.
just jump in and be
Yeah.
a mid-level professional.
Exactly.
Right? You have to
Exactly.
learn
Yeah. Those
from through
entry level
this,
jobs,
so.
I think those are the ones that are going to be hard to justify because the companies are going to be, they're not going to be paying those or hiring those entry level ones because it takes somebody in the mid level to understand the AI and how to direct it and understand the knowledge of that industry on what results you want and what it's given back, the AI is given back if it's good or not. Because an entry level person may not know that that's correct or not. That's coming back from the AI.
Makes sense.
That's interesting. I run into that when I use AI for, I don't know, maybe writing something, could be a caption, could be headline writing, but in the prompts, I have to know how to, okay, yeah, that's good, but know how to direct AI. Like I want it sassier or it needs to be a little bit more technical from this standpoint, but an entry-level person might not know that.
Yeah.
Knowing the end goal.
Until they've been in an industry and seen any of the results and actually worked. But like I said, when it comes to the actual blue collar work, I guess is the plumbers and the welders and the electricians, the ones that are actually doing that. And well, I guess I shouldn't say that in 10 years we're going to have robots, that have AI built into them that who knows that, they're going to be taking over the manufacturing jobs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
I don't think anybody can, I would never ask what 10 years from now looks like.
Yeah.
Because as you said,
knows?
every week it's got leaps and bounds of change.
Yeah.
Which has been unreal. And I think we talked to Lucas Mostelski on a different episode about data centers, and we talked a little bit about quantum computing and what effects that might have. And I just think predicting anything right now it's a hard question, and you can almost look into like next year. And of course, we don't know as general consumers or people in the public. But like you said, I think you hit the nail on the head. There are billions of dollars being invested, and there's a lot of people using the technology, and the technology is rapidly evolving. And so, I mean, I think it's just safe to say that it's going to be a part of our everyday lives, whether we like it or not here. And I was really looking for, how do you get involved? And I think you gave some really creative ways, like, hey, if you're in a role or even in your personal life where you have to write emails, you can just, dictate, say something really quick, and then say, type me an email. Okay, make it more professional. All right, add a paragraph on this, and then it just types it for you. And something that usually takes me 40 minutes to sit down and write at the end of the day because I can't get it done during the day, now it might take 30 seconds.
Yeah, if it's not for writing code, efficiencies. Yeah,
and I do a lot of brainstorming with mine. I bring up ChatGPT when if I'm driving a long drive, I just turn it on the side and I just start having a conversation. It sounds creepy, but I get a lot of brainstorming down because it has the knowledge and the training part of it. You can search the internet and the web. I can sit there and say, I've got this idea, and I start bouncing ideas off of it. And then when I'm done at the end of the drive or whatever, and half an hour of talking with it, I'll save it and then I'll go to my computer later and I'll have it pull up my conversation and say, okay, summarize everything we talked about and the good ideas that we talked about. And it'll tell you whether it's a good idea. Yeah, you can do that. Or what if it's not possible, then it helps me to learn and understand. And I think a lot of people are very audio learning. That's where I am, is I like to listen to podcasts, of course. But you can use, there's a bunch of tools out there like Notebook LM, for example, where you can put your training information, your user manuals and stuff like that. I did some of LSE's Lake Superior's training modules, and I put it in this tool, and then it had to make me a podcast for it to give me a 15-minute podcast, and it walked through step by step. Well, while I'm driving, I can hit the play button and listen to our training manual through an audio podcast, and it sounds just like two people talking back and forth, having this discussion on safety or whatever the topic is,
versus reading
trying
a
to
manual.
Read it. Yeah, exactly. You're not listening to a manual or reading a manual. You're listening to a conversation about the subject. And I think college people and stuff like that, you can put your books or your lessons in it and have it give you a summary or a podcast and have it just sit there and read it to you. And I learn a lot better that way than I do reading a manual or something that way. So I think that education is huge, I think, with AI, and we're going to see a lot of progress, I think, in that too in the future.
Well, Kaycee, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure this is a topic we could talk about for days on end.
Yeah.
And And when we meet again, it'll probably be a different conversation because it's changing so quickly. Really appreciate you agreeing to be on the show and helping to shed some light on this buzz topic of artificial intelligence and how it might affect us and how we can use it.
Thanks, Kaycee.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on this episode of Manic Energy, where the only constant is change. If you're fired up, do us a solid. Follow the show, leave a quick review, or send it to a friend. Got questions, ideas, or a topic you want us to dig into? Drop us a line at the link in the show description. Thanks for riding the current with us. Until next time, stay charged.